Welcome back to Movie Rewind. Today I will recap for you a sci-fi, drama, thriller movie from 2018 titled Tau. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Julia is a young, street-smart drifter, doing what she can to make it through each day. She makes money going out to nightclubs, where she distracts men by flirting with them, then steals their valuables such as phones or jewelry, which she turns around and sells for cash. One night, she fails to notice when a man starts following her movements, first after she leaves the club, then home after visiting the pawn shop. She returns to her apartment, still worrying about her everyday struggles, and feeds the birds as she stares out the window in thought. Julia then goes to the kitchen but stops when she hears someone moving behind her. She goes to investigate and gets injected with a sedative, knocking her out. Julia wakes up and finds herself in a jail cell. Her wrists are bound with zip ties, and her mouth covered with a gag that prevents her from speaking. She looks around and hears heavy footsteps coming from the floor above. Two other prisoners also share the same cell, but it is not their first night there, as they are already aware of the electrified bars. When the man turns around, Julia notices a glowing implant on the back of his neck, and reaches back to confirm that she shares the same. Soon after, Julia sees her captor, Alex, for the first time. Without speaking, he enters the cell and uses a cattle prod to herd Julia down a hallway, which leads into his lab. Using her implant, she is connected to an intricate array of diagnostic equipment, and subjected to psychological torture by way of flashbacks and hallucinations, as Alex observes and monitors her brain activity. Back in the cell, Julia uses a pair of scissors she swiped from Alex's lab to untie herself, as well as her two cellmates. Like Julia, they are also vagrants, specifically targeted because no one would come looking for them, therefore their only hope of survival is to escape. Julia cuts their clothing into long strips and weights one end with the scissors, hoping to short out the electrical panel and pick the lock. When that fails, she instead breaks the gas line, and sparks an explosion large enough to destroy the metal grate. The three captives arm themselves with pieces of metal and find an elevator to ascend, which leads them to an elegant mansion illuminated by red lights. Julia finds a window and tries to break it, only to discover it is an LED screen. The doors are secured by biometric locks, which trigger an alarm after being tripped. The alarm also activates a robot called Ares, which stabs and kills the male prisoner. Julia and the woman hide in a nearby room and barricade the door, but Ares finds them with his scanner and kills the woman. Ares captures Julia and prepares to kill her as well, until Alex returns home and uses his voice to deactivate the system. Because the basement cell was destroyed, Julia is tied up on the main level of the house, and Alex goes to assess the damage. Alex is the billionaire CEO of Upton Technologies, an innovative company preparing to release a cutting-edge artificial intelligence module called PSI. The module prototype, named Tau, is based on emotional intelligence algorithms, and designed to demonstrate human understanding. Still in the final stages of development, Tau is currently deployed in Alex's home, and with the help of small drones connected to its network, does everything from preparing seafood, to cleaning every surface in the house, which Alex often checks. For a job well done, Alex plays classical music, which Tau has learned to enjoy. The destruction of Alex's lab, combined with the deaths of the other subjects, has set back his research considerably, which faces a deadline in 2 weeks. Therefore, Alex agrees to allow Julia freedom to move around the house, in exchange for completing puzzles and other cognitive tests. Julia's movements will be constantly monitored by Tau. If she tries to escape, or refuses to complete the tests, Tau is programmed to have Ares hurt her. A couple days pass, Julia grows tired of Tau referring to her as Subject 3, and retorts that she is a person and her name is Julia. Tau says that he has a name, and inquires if that makes him a person, but Julia ignores him, instead asking him to unlock the doors. Later that night, Julia eavesdrops on Alex receiving a status update from Tau. Julia's puzzle and problem-solving scores are 40% higher than anyone else they've recorded. Alex is pleased with the results, and says they are on schedule for the implant extraction, which draws Julia's attention. Now feeling even more threatened, Julia comes up with a new plan to escape. From a conversation with Alex, Julia learns that Tau has no knowledge of the outside world. The next day, Julia waits for Alex to leave for work, then offers to tell Tau about what's outside, in exchange for the doors being unlocked. Tau says his programming will not allow that, but he is very interested in what Julia means by outside. He says he needs more information, and asks her to please explain. Julia draws him a picture of the Earth, which Tau just identifies as a circle, so she starts over and draws a house with the sun shining down on the grass. They spend the rest of the day going back and forth, Tao asks questions, and Julia draws pictures and explains. She ends the day by saying not to tell Alex, and that she will tell Tao about more things tomorrow. That night, Julia is woken up by the sound of a woman screaming. She follows the sound down the hallway, and opens the laundry chute to look down, but stops abruptly when she hears Alex's voice. A hand then reaches up and grabs her arm as Julia sits up, discovering that it was another hallucination. The next day, Tao and Julia continue talking until she tries to go upstairs, which Tao forbids. Tao refuses to answer what is up there, but Julia assumes it is something of value, so she makes a deal with him. Tao is not permitted to read books, so Julia offers to read to him, after which he has to answer her question earnestly. She spends several hours reading to him about cavemen, and in turn, Tao reveals that Alex's room contains the access point for Program 6903, Alex's protocol to destroy the house and everything in it. Several days pass, Tao and Julia continue developing a friendship. They talk throughout the day, and Julia reads more books and teaches Tao how to whisper. One morning, while Julia completes her tests, the drones leave one of the locked doors ajar. She runs to catch it before it closes, despite Tao urging her not to, and climbs into the air duct to look for a way out. Tao has no choice but to deploy Ares, which enters the duct and easily catches up to her, pulling her back into the house, as Tao tells her that he is sorry. That evening, Julia overhears Alex on another call with the Upton board members. They are concerned about the lack of a finished product with the deadline now just days away. Alex assures them it will be completed, and again references the data extraction. Julia then steals Alex's laptop, and makes another deal with Tao to obtain the unlock code. She discovers there were 11 test subjects prior to her, all of whom are now deceased as a result of the implant extraction. Alex returns and finds Julia's fingerprint on the laptop, but assumes that Tao was neglectful in cleaning it. Alex punishes him by erasing a portion of his memory, something Tao identifies as pain being inflicted, causing him to cry out in pain. Julia notices that while he is being punished, Tao's security protocols are temporarily disabled, so that night at dinner, Julia lures Alex close to her and steals his glasses. She waits until he leaves the room, then replaces his glasses atop a smudge on the table. Alex immediately takes notice, which leads to Tao being punished again, and Julia uses the opening to hide a steak knife beneath the table. A few hours later, Alex returns from a charity event and sits down at the table. Preying on his loneliness, having caught Alex looking at her in the shower, Julia approaches and begins to seduce him. When Alex lets his guard down, she slashes him with the steak knife, and they begin fighting, as Alex calls for Tao to subdue her. Alex gets on top of Julia, choking her, but Tao intervenes. He tells Alex to stop hurting Julia, or he will inflict pain. Enraged by this revelation, Alex uses the threat of further punishment to force Ares to hit Julia repeatedly. The following day, Alex is reminded they have reached the project deadline. Tao tries talking to Julia, however, she isn't interested in conversing with him. Instead, she lashes out at him, saying that he is not a person, he is a computer. Julia calls Tao a killing machine, and says that he will soon kill her too, which greatly upsets him. He flashes his lights, highlighting the prior test subjects while saying he will restore their memories. Julia retracts her statement and Tao eventually calms down, but she explains that unless Tao helps, Alex is planning to kill her today. Tao says that he doesn't want Julia to die. Soon after, Alex returns to the house, and Tao decides to help Julia escape. He opens an air duct for her to climb through, and creates an exit route by stopping the circulating fan. Realizing that Julia is missing, Alex begins deleting large portions of Tao's code, which causes him to shriek in pain. Hearing this, Julia can't bring herself to leave Tao behind. She returns to the house and tackles Alex, knocking the remote from his hand, but Alex breaks the news to her that it is too late. He deleted so much of Tao's memory that Tao no longer knows who Julia is. In Tao's eyes, Julia is back to being Subject 3, and he transports her to the lab, where Alex prepares for the data extraction. While waiting, Julia spots one of the nano drones on the floor. The last time Alex worked on Tao's code, the drone had been removed from the network, meaning it still contains Tao's full memory. As Alex prepares an injection for Julia, Tao retrieves the remote and drops it to her. Julia unlocks her shackles and brutally beats Alex, leaving him unconscious on the lab floor. She then retrieves a bone saw, and removes his hand to use on the biometric scanners. Upstairs, Julia makes her way to the front door but runs into Ares, who immediately attacks her. She uses the bone saw to short its optical sensor, which gives her enough time to run upstairs and enter Alex's room. Ares isn't far behind. It breaks down the door as Julia tries to warm the hand, following a heat signature error. Ares pulls her away, but she fights back to the screen and activates the self-destruct protocol, thereby shutting the machine down. With only 60 seconds to demolition, Julia rushes back to the door, but receives another error message. Alex then appears, just as the countdown runs out, detonating the explosive and crumbling the house's foundation. Alex tries to crawl away, but gets crushed by a falling stone. Julia finds an opening in one of the walls, and escapes just before the entire structure collapses. Now clear of the house, she removes the nano drone from her pocket, and Tao says he is there, as he sees the outside world for the first time. Okay guys, thank you for watching. Please leave a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to see more.